In the days of Jesus, the religious people of that time were teaching that divorce could be a very easy process. There was a large influence from a certain religious group that appealed to one part of the law of Moses where it simply said, if you want to have a divorce, you just give a certificate of divorce and then it can be done. As simple as just, hey, piece of paper, you don't like the marriage, just get on out of it. So Jesus in his teaching on the Sermon on the Mount addressed this very callous view of marriage. And why do I call it a callous view of marriage? It's like, hey, you treat marriage just like any other relationship, like it's a boyfriend or girlfriend. When you're growing up and you got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, if you don't like them anymore, you just dump them. And that's essentially what was going on within society in Jesus' time, is that marriage was being reduced to just this not so serious thing any longer. Whereas in the book of Genesis, when God brought Adam and Eve together, he said, the two shall become one flesh. It's this establishment of a covenant until death do us part. And so Jesus here in Matthew chapter 5, verse 31, addresses the issue of a callous perspective on divorce. And so I wanted you to understand the context as we jump into this. He says, furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say, whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries another woman who is divorced commits adultery. So there's some very strong views on what Jesus said here, but understanding the context of the passage, he's essentially appealing to God's mandate of covenant relationship in marriage, that divorce is not something that we can just do on a whim. In Jesus' paradigm, he states only marital unfaithfulness provides a pathway to a permission of divorce. And this was a safeguard to Israelite society, because when people just divorce on a whim, as we're seeing again nowadays, families don't remain stable. Now, there are some limited circumstances, and this is why Jesus pointed out one of the most critical ones, in which divorce might be the unfortunate route to take. However, Jesus sets a precedent here in which divorce should always be the very last option on the table. And the societal issue that was going on in that time is very similar to what we have now, where marriage is not looked at as a sacred institution, but as a contract and as a pathway to having a really fun wedding day and having all the celebrations. And then, it becomes this issue of just two people being very selfish and expecting each other to be their fulfillment rather than God. And so we get people who just go through divorce after divorce after divorce. Now, let me make it clear that I come from a family of people who have went through divorce, and I've seen that happen, and God has a ton of mercy, and divorce is never an easy thing to do. I don't think people are happy to divorce when they do it. But Jesus here always teaches that we are to give him an opportunity to work a miracle in that relationship, and that we should only leave a marriage when the situation calls for it. He talks about marital unfaithfulness. Paul, the apostle, expands and talks about abandonment, and obviously good reason can infer that abusive situations can sometimes call for that, and many times call for that as well. But here's the thing. This conversation is not about divorce. This conversation is about the sacredness of marriage. So in Jesus' teaching, he doesn't reveal his viewpoint on divorce per se. He tries to affirm the sacredness of marriage and how serious it should be taken. If we take steps to make sure that we see marriage and our spouse sees marriage as a sacred institution, divorce is not as common as when it's not looked at in that light. And so that's Jesus giving commentary on the issue of divorce. I really think it's time for a revival of the understanding of marriage in our time. That if more individuals understood marriage as a covenant before they entered into it, divorces would be a lot less common. But when we look at marriage as something that's just a little step above boyfriend and girlfriend, it's not so hard to just dump them when you're tired of them. And that's not love. That's not God's best. And sometimes you have to navigate through some storms with a person in order to experience true intimacy with that individual. So I hope that was enlightening for you this morning. Freedom Journey Ministries is a ministry that fights the epidemic of addiction, and we put out devotionals every day to try to teach, disciple, and encourage those within our ministry, but we also want to bless you. So if you would take a moment and pray for us today as we try to leverage the gospel of Jesus Christ to help those suffering from addiction. God bless, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.